Hi everyone, thank you so much for your patience. As you can imagine, it's a very busy day and we're honored to be joined with our panelists here. We'll also have a few more joining as there are urgent talks going on. The focus of the panel today is, of course, the climate finance goal. We are here today to hear about the red lines and also the expectations from developing country blocs. We have sent invitations to all the developing country blocs and they will be joining this press panel as and when they can. If they are unable to, due to the meetings that are happening, rest assured we will be putting you in touch, the media in touch, with representatives from those blocs as soon as we can. So we are delighted to first hear from Adonia Ibare of Uganda on behalf of G77, and then we'll be hearing from Diego Pacheco of Bolivia on behalf of LMDC. Over to you.
Well, you introduced me wrongly, so I'm not Diego.
Mohammed.
My name is Ali Mohammed.
There's been a lot of movement today. This is Ali Mohammed of Kenya on behalf of AGN.
So that is correct. So I represent, oh, he's here. So let's give him a few minutes to, the man she introduces here.
What's going on?
We'll just have a moment while he catches his breath. So we are now joined by Ali Mohammed of Kenya on behalf of AGN. We're also joined by Adonia Ibare of Uganda on behalf of G77 and Diego Pacheco of Bolivia on behalf of LMDC. We are going to start with Adonia. If you'd like to tell us about your expectations and also red lines when it comes to the climate finance goal, as we're due to receive more text in the next few hours.
And blue lines as well. Adonia is my name. Ayebare, I'm the chair of G77. These two are my bosses. They will say everything I wanted to say. But to start by saying that the G77 and China have transparently communicated their needs, specifying the exact quantum and quality of financial support required to address climate challenges effectively. However, there has been noticeable radio silence and absence of detailed plans and commitments from developed countries, complicating progress and undermining the negotiation process as time runs short. With only a few hours left in the negotiations, the absence of updates on plans from developed nations heightens the uncertainty and urgency of our situation. There is a strong hope that the forthcoming text will clearly define the financial commitments, detailing the amount, quality, mechanism for delivery, which is crucial for advancing our collective climate action and efforts. It is imperative for developed countries to step up and meet the expectations set forth by developing nations who are on the front line of climate emergency and require assured immediate support to mitigate, adapt to climate impacts and address loss and damage effectively. So those are my initial remarks. Thank you.
Thank you. Ali Mohammed, would you like to share your take regarding the AGN and their stance?
Thank you very much. This is the second week of the negotiations, and we are midweek for the last week. And we were hoping that by now we will have achieved, direction of where we are going with regard to the most important discussion here, which is the new collective quantified goal. Unfortunately, as you all know, up to now, we don't have any confirmation on the quantum that we all have been asking for. The position of African group is very clear. We've been mentioning this since 2019. Our African ministers have, using information and assessments that are done by experts, independent experts, and the UN agencies, have quantified the need for Africa and the rest of the developing world at $1.3 trillion. But up to now, we don't see any movement from our development partners. This is a clear obligation for developed partners to give support to developing countries to meet their urgent and immediate needs to address the challenges of climate change, to address needs of adaptation, which is the most important issue for developing countries, in particular for vulnerable countries like Africa. Up to now, we don't seem to have that figure. And we've been pushing for that for the last 10 or so days since we've been here. And this is very frustrating and disappointing, really. And we hope that our partners will come forward with a justifiable number that will meet the needs and the scale of the growing problems of climate change. That is the situation currently, and we're looking forward to receive the text that the presidency will be producing this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Ali. Now over to Diego, who will be speaking on behalf of the LMDC regarding expectations and also red lines when it comes to the NCQG.
Thank you very much. Well, for the LMDC, this is a COP of finance. And we want to see the balance of this COP, taking into account the historical balance of the process in the last years. In Sharm el-Sheikh, we have the mitigation work program and the just transition. In Dubai, the global stocktake. And now we need an outcome very strongly related to the provision of finance from developed countries to developing countries. Really, that means having a balance in the implementation of the Paris Agreement. And for the LMDC, there is a super red line, which is to not to reinterpret, to rewrite the Paris Agreement and, of course, the Convention. The NCQG should be grounded into the mandate of the Paris Agreement, which clearly states that the provision of finance flows from developed countries to developing countries. So we are concerned very much in the negotiation attempts to introduce innovative elements to change the mandate of the Paris Agreement, to dilute the responsibilities, the legal obligations of developed countries in the context of the Convention and its Paris Agreement. So far, there is attempts on mitigation, for example, to move from the facilitative nature of the Paris Agreement to a prescriptive, intrusive mitigation, cherry-picking some elements of the global stocktake, and also to impose targets to developing countries with no finance, with no provision of finance. That's why having an outcome on the NCQG is critical for the implementation of the Paris Agreement. We cannot allow that this COP should be the scenario for the great escape from developed countries to fulfill their legal obligations. We always said that finance is not charity. Finance, the provision of finance to developing countries is a legal obligation from developed countries to developing countries. That's why this COP is really important, to really put in the right place the mitigation discussions and really agreed in a very consistent, clear figure in the context of the NCQG.
Thank you. And now we'll open for questions. If you'd like to state your name and organization. Front row here in the gray.
Ivan Kron of AFP. A question for the three of you. How would you respond to an NCQG in a range of 200 billion, let's say? To the three of you.
Is it a joke?
Oh. Is it a joke?
Well, we don't know where you're getting the 200, but joke or otherwise, the quantum that we are putting forward is nothing near to what you just suggested. And we just saw the adaptation gap report that said that the gap for meeting adaptation needs of developing countries is up to 400 billion. So when the figure that you mentioned, 200, that's why colleagues are asking, is it a joke? If it cannot even respond to the gap on adaptation, let alone other things, that we take it as a very big joke indeed.
In the front, please.
Thank you. My name is Leon Lidigu from Nation Media Group. Now, 20 years ago, during the 1992 Rio Declaration, it was agreed that the development is a right. This right for developing countries has been tramped upon for very many years, and now we are at a point where we need to get the 1.3 trillion for lives and livelihoods to change. So my question to the AGN chair and the African minister perhaps is, are we ready to walk away when we are being given a bad deal? Because from where I sit, I see that a bad deal, no deal is better than a bad deal. I don't know what your thoughts are on that. Thank you.
We've come here to negotiate in good faith, and we will continue engaging positively and objectively with all partners until the last minute. And so at this stage, it's too premature to talk about walking out. Thank you.
Front row, lady in red.
Thaisa Lara from Climatica. What would you need to see in tomorrow's text or this midnight text in order to consider a good text? The COP president said on a previous press conference that, of course, it's not going to be the last text, but what is going to be for you something that is going to be important to be there? Thank you.
First of all, there is nothing like in this business like a perfect text. But what we need to see is to reflect the demands of developing countries. My colleague here has talked about the quantum we have been talking about, not only AGN, but the developing countries. A number, a figure, and it's in trillions, and it's 1.3 trillion. We need a figure as a headline of the text. Headline. Then the rest will follow. But we need a headline. I used to be a member of the press. A headline is important. It's better than the content. Some people read the headlines. We need a good headline that really talks about a big quantum in trillions. Then we can go into other issues. For example, people have been talking about expanding the contributor base. But as Diego has said, the Paris Agreement 9.1 is very clear. It's from developed to developing countries. But however, and it shouldn't be, the NCQG negotiation shouldn't be need to reopen Paris Agreement. But we can look at another layer in the decision that talks about voluntary, for example, contribution. But that should be after the headline. That's the text that has a headline, a big headline, followed by other clauses.
Front row. Thank you.
Thank you. Patrick Greenfield from the Guardian newspaper. I have a question for the Bolivian minister. What do you say to European taxpayers who will be footing the bill for some of the countries that you're representing today that have nuclear weapons programs, that have space programs, that are indeed in some cases buying football clubs and luxury hotels in their own countries and calling themselves developing countries in this context? Not all, of course, But what is your message for them? It is ultimately their tax money in some of the cases that will be paying for this climate finance. Thank you.
I think that the real issue here, well, it is not true that in the world there is no money. There is a lot of money. But we need to reorient the money from the wars to solve the climate crisis could be really the great idea for developing countries in the context of fulfilling their obligations. So I think developed countries should really try to address. They are very creative. They are very innovative in the negotiation process. So they should be very creative at home, really to find the ways to increase the amount of money that developing countries are requesting. This is a critical issue. Political will is very important at this stage. They have the money. Political will is needed. They lack political will, but well, I think listening to developing countries together in unity, maybe we can make the difference. And as Adonia, our G77 chair is saying, we need the figure, the clear figure. Thank you.
This will be the final question. Go to the gent in the second row.
Hello, Josh Gabatis from Carbon Brief. The G77 has been clear that climate finance should be for all developing countries. Some of the developing country groups have asked for specific amounts of money carved out from the total. The EU, I think, has also been supportive of sort of prioritizing climate finance for LDCs and SIDS. I wonder if this is something that you would support in principle, the idea of having money carved out for specific groups of countries, and maybe this could be some sort of area of convergence with developed countries. Thank you.
Well, as Diego has said, I don't think it is appropriate to start cherry picking and trying to change the commitments and obligations of the Convention and the Paris Agreement. Paris Agreement is very clear who is supposed to receive and from whom. I think we need to be faithful to the agreements and meet the obligations and responsibilities that are outlined there. Thank you.
And that concludes our press conference now. Thank you very much to our panel and to all of you for attending. Thank you.